Okay,
I see you. Can you hear me?
I can.
I can see you. I think we're on.
Okay.
Are you ready? We can. I'm just recording. For some reason, when I hit record, it just went.
This is
Awesome.
crazy.
I think we're on now. We're recording. So I mean,
Wow.
I can edit this. I'll edit it. So we can just go.
Wow, it's
How have you been?
good. It's so good to see you
Yeah,
again.
it's good to see you, Mark.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
I think I listened to one of your podcasts. I need to listen to more. Um,
Well,
Needless to
thank you.
say,
I
they were
appreciate
very
that.
informative and thoughtful comments that you always have. I think you went to a festival for the one I heard. You were talking about a festival you'd gone to.
Yes.
Yeah.
So fun. So fun. Have you ever been to a music festival?
You know what? I've been to some that are like bluegrass festivals or folk music festivals. I haven't been to a rock festival. Well, I guess we'll get started. I've got just a little bit of notes. Well, hey everybody, we're so glad to be here. We are especially privileged tonight to have the great Mark Glubke with us. Now, let me just, he's humble, so I'll just introduce him a little bit. I've known Mark. Mark, how is it 40 years? I don't even want to say that out loud. Has it been 40 years that we've known each other? 35.
35 at least. I mean, I think we
Oh
met
my
in
God.
85. So whatever that
85.
is.
And he was my roommate in college, actually. And that was just sort of by happenstance. But it turns out that we both loved music and had so many great conversations. And he's a very knowledgeable person on music. And of course, Mark, we were also the heart of a great erstwhile rock and roll band, short-lived as it might have been, the Flaming Liberals. Do you remember the Flaming Liberals?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the Flaming Liberals, we rocked the house maybe what, 3 or 4 times in our short-lived career, wasn't it?
At
Mark,
least.
yeah.
I
And
remember Mississippi Queen during
you know
lunch
what?
hour.
That's
I
right.
remember a tribute to Led Zeppelin somewhere along the
Yeah,
way. I
how many more
remember.
times? And we had Eric Perry singing and Andy Vinstra doing the channeling some Joe Cocker there on one song. Remember that?
Yes,
Trevor Mast
yes.
on drums. Uh, was it Ormston Fest? We played at Ormston Fest too. You know, I can edit this, Mark, and I've got 1 or 2 pictures of the Flaming Liberals. If you have any more, send them to me and I'll put them in this little video.
Oh, that would be
Because Mark
hilarious.
was actually a very good bass player. You were in Up With People, which is a great group. And then he's also had a professional career. I know you're a counselor now. Is that right? But
That is correct.
you've also written for he's a journalist. And I always lucked out. I got to go to several concerts with Mark where he had a backstage pass. Remember, we saw Greg Allman a couple times.
Yes, who can forget?
Yeah, and then you worked in New York City with some theater journalism, isn't that right?
Right. I published
Yeah,
theater books. I had a book career before I went into counseling. So
yeah.
it's been a long, strange journey, as they
Well,
say.
we're so glad to have you here, and of course, having been friends for all these years, it's a great thing. But you've done a lot professionally too that everyone should know about. But tonight we're going to chat about lyrics, and I couldn't think of anyone better to talk about lyrics with, um, because I feel like lyrics are sort of an underappreciated thing. In a way, that seems like an obvious point. I mean, everybody would say lyrics are important, but they really are important if you think about it, because they're the heart of a good song. Um, and so Mark and I are going to chat a little bit about lyrics. Now, we discussed the criteria a little bit. Mark, our parameters were 1960 to 1980. Is that right?
Yes, that sounds fair.
1960 to 1980. And we kind of opened it up. Originally, we were going to kind of focus on rock lyrics, but we just thought of all the great acoustic artists as well. So that's the category, popular music from 1960 to 1980. which of course is the golden age of pop music, I would almost argue. I mean, not that there wasn't good stuff before and after. Well, Mark, what we were going to do is we haven't coordinated this in any way. It occurred to me we might have some of the same. I know we like the same people, so it's possible we might come up with the same things because we didn't talk about it ahead of time. But we each have picked 5 songs, which would be representative of 5 great artists, and we're going to talk about why we think those songs are great lyrically. And I guess we'll start with Mark, being our distinguished guest. Why don't you give us? Shall we rank them? You're number 5, or whatever you want to start with.
Okay, I'll do it. I'll go for it. Number 5 for me.
All right, go ahead. Number 5.
Number 5 for me is going to be. Let me just preface this a little bit. Okay, I want to just say that my choices are probably going to be so cliche and so obvious, right?
So maybe that's because they were the best ones. Sometimes the cliche is
like, I'm thinking, like, I'm looking at these lyrics, and these are lyrics that I heard when I was a teenager. Like, these are the ones that got kind of absorbed in really early, and I'm looking back, and God, I can't think of stuff that's hit me as deep since then. And I'm going to be honest and say, I'm not, like, lyrics are important, but lyrics aren't the first thing I typically hear in a song. I'm a melody person. I listen to the rhythm section.
right.
I listen to how the instruments work together and how they play as an ensemble. There are songs I've heard 100 times I couldn't tell you the lyrics to. Right. So I'm just saying that that's kind of like a little caveat.
Well, Mark, one thing I would say is instrumentals can be lyrical if you think about it. I mean, but I know what you're saying. I mean, the music is, I always am driven by the music too. But it's good to sometimes think about lyrics. So what was your first lyric that you wanted to highlight?
Well, I'm going to talk about John Lennon. Okay.
All right. Go ahead, Mark. What was your number 5?
I'm going to talk about John Lennon. Okay. And the thing about John Lennon that is so beautiful and so memorable is his ability. Like, the language is really, really simple. It's just really simple language, and yet it conveys stuff, subject matter and emotions that are so relatable that everybody can relate to. And that's what I love. This is, again, so cliche, but here we go. There are places I'll remember all my life, though some have changed, some forever, not for better. Some have gone and some remain. All these places have their moments. With lovers and friends, I still can recall. Some are dead and some are living. In my life, I've loved them all. I mean, that's so simple. The language is so simple, and yet who can't relate to that? Like, that's so relatable, right?
And Mark, one thing that's amazing, he was what, 21 or 22 or 23 when he wrote that?
Probably.
Yeah. And so you are absolutely right. That is that might be my favorite Beatles song. I mean, I'd have to think about Here, There, and Everywhere, and well, how many other Beatles songs, but that one in particular, you are absolutely right. And the lyrics are a critical part of the success of that song. I think the timeless nature of that song.
Right. It's a stunning song. It's in my top 5 for sure. It might be my favorite Beatles song.
Yeah.
So touching. It's so perfect,
Because you're not going to find too many people that like the Beatles or know more about the Beatles than Mark Glubke here. But in my life, you are absolutely right. That is just an absolute gem of a song. And I remember the Playboy interview with John Lennon, and I would say, see, Mom, it's true, you really can read the articles. But he had that big, he, he had that big interview he did in Playboy magazine before he died, and I think he might have mentioned that was one of his favorite songs. I just remember reading that years ago. I think it was Ticket to Ride he mentioned, but I think he mentioned that as one of the ones that he thought was one of his best songs. And early Lennon in particular was so good. All of his stuff is good, but well, that was a great choice for number 5. Absolutely. My number 5 was actually Ray Davies in the Kinks. And there were several I could have picked. But I've always thought he was such a good lyricist. And one of the songs that I love is Celluloid Heroes. I don't know if you're familiar with that song, or Life on the Road. The song Life on the Road has always been one of my favorites. And, about, going out on the road and sort of the coming of age experiences. But the Kinks had a bunch of good songs lyrically. And one of the things I think about the Kinks is, they're even their party songs like All Day, All the Night, Girl, I guess they're considered sort of ancestors of punk rock. I've never quite understood that, but people say that. But their lyrics were always really well considered. But one of my Ray Davies in general was a great songwriter, and part of that package was he was a great lyricist. And there were so many I could have picked, but I always grew up listening to that song, Celluloid Heroes, which was a good album from the early to mid 70s period. There are a bunch of good songs on there, but it's about the stars on Hollywood Boulevard, and kind of it's such a poignant song. And I remember seeing them doing that live. I was privileged to see the Kinks. Mark, I think you saw Dave Davies recently.
About 5 years ago.
Okay, it seemed like you posted a picture of you and Dave Davies, right? Was that Dave
Yeah.
Davies?
Yeah,
But
I did.
my number 5 was Ray Davies in the Kinks. And I just thought that they had so many things I could have pulled from, but the song that I always really liked was Celluloid Heroes, and a bunch of others, but that in particular is a terrific song. And Ray Davies is I won't say underrated, because obviously people love Ray Davies and the Kinks, but I just sort of think in some ways they're not as remembered, maybe we could say. And they have a catalog of all-time great songs, and his lyrics were always a big part of any Kinks album. My personal favorite is Celluloid Heroes.
They're very British, very witty, very kind of quirky and dark. And Ray Davies is an amazing artist.
Sometimes humorous. What is Blazing on a Sunny Afternoon? He's got some kind of funny lines on that. Or So Tired of Waiting. Well, they were great. I saw them, and they were great, and they rocked too.
I saw them too. They were so awesome. That's one of my favorite shows.
They were a really good live band. And sometimes bands with really good lyrics don't always put together great rock performances, and they always put everything together. I think Kinks.
Yep.
Great band, great rock performances, and the lyrics were never really sort of subsumed by the loud music. The lyrics were always important in the performances, whatever they were doing.
It's a fantastic choice. Their Kinks are.
Go ahead. What were you saying, Mark?
Kinks are in my top 10 for sure, probably in my top 5. I'm a huge fan. I think that's a great pick.
Yeah, I thought about it because I had some others, and I said, I've got the Kinks need to be on this list, because they had a whole catalog of great songs. All right, Mark, what was your number 4?
Well, number 4, I'm going to pick this is really kind of a strange one. I don't know if you're familiar, if you would have thought of this, but I'm going to talk about a guy named Robert Hunter.
You know
Robert Hunter?
My head.
Okay, Robert Hunter was the lyricist who wrote the lyrics with Jerry Garcia for the Grateful Dead.
Oh.
Now, this is interesting. He's the only man in history I can think of who was a non-performing member of a band. He was a member of the Grateful Dead. He's
Okay.
in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member of the Grateful Dead. He never performed. They had him in the band strictly as a lyricist. And
That's awesome.
yeah, I mean, he wrote the lyrics to, Truckin' and all those great songs, and they're full
Oh,
of
wow.
humor, they're full of wit. What a long, strange trip it's been, of
Yeah.
course, is his most famous line. Um, the song I want to mention, uh, I would say, is maybe his best lyric. Um, do you know the song Ripple?
Yeah, I haven't heard it in a long time, but yes, I do know that song.
Reach out your hand if your cup be empty. If your cup is full, may it be again. Let it be known there is a fountain that was not made by the hands of men. There is a road, no simple highway, between the dawn and the dark of night. And if you go, no one may follow. That path is for your steps alone. Ripple in still water when there is no pebble tossed, nor wind to blow.
Mark, when you read those very well, you realize that's poetry as well as music.
Right.
It crosses the line between poetry and music because they're very related, poetry and music. There's a musicality in poetry. I have heard that song, There is a Road. Yeah.
It's a beautiful song. It's a song, I think it's a song about faith. He's talking about there's a ripple in the water that no pebble, caused. And I think it's a song about faith. And it is such a beautiful and spiritual
Right.
song. I think it's one of his best lyrics. I think it's one of the Grateful Dead's best songs. I just love it. So I don't know. I'm a big fan of Robert Hunter. Bob
I need,
Hunter and Jerry Garcia co-wrote all those songs together.
was he part of Haight Ashbury? Because I think in years to come, Haight Ashbury will be seen almost like we see the Harlem Renaissance. There was that few year period was a really special time, and I think there was a lot of poetry actually in that period. It was kind of maybe like the uh, Greenwich Village too. There would be poetry readings and but I need to read about Robert Hunter. I know those songs, but
It's so weird because he's an official member of the band, but because he never performed on stage, no one hardly knows what he looks like. Like you would never know that's a Grateful Dead member. You know what I mean?
that's such a Grateful Dead thing to do. Also, to have someone be a member of the band that doesn't actually play an instrument. That's better than one example I think that's not as successful is Peter Brown, who wrote all those weird lyrics for Cream. And he made all that. That's one of the reasons Ginger Baker died so angry about Cream, because Peter Brown was the lyricist. Peter Brown wrote those weird lyrics to, Tales of Brave Ulysses and Swablar, and made millions of dollars. And Ginger Baker, you know, he made 10 times. And I don't think the lyrics of some of those Cream songs hold up as well as Ginger Baker's drumming does all these years later.
I would agree with that. It's
But
pretty dated.
Robert Hunter, yeah, I need to, because I actually consider myself a pretty big Dead fan. Well, my number 4 was actually another cliche a little bit, certainly popular, not too out of the box, was the Eagles. And I think the Eagles are popular. I guess you could say they're sugary, they're radio friendly, but I always think the lyrics were so well considered, whether they were doing a kind of a fun party song. But I think some of Don Henley's lyrics in the heyday of the Eagles were really almost like Thoreau-esque, And one of my favorite Eagles songs of the many is The Last Resort, which I think is the last song on Hotel California. They called it Paradise, the one in Rhode Island, where the old world shadows hang heavy in the air. She packed her hopes and dreams like a refugee. It's kind of an American dream song with a touch of pessimism, but it's such a beautiful song, and it's a long kind of poetic journey, and it's kind of a Western song too. You know, she comes from Providence, New Rhode Island, and kind of. And when I was a kid, I would listen to that and kind of absorb the feeling of it, and you know, some of the details of the lyrics. But as I've gotten older, you know, Don Henley was a really thoughtful guy. I like just about any Eagles song you name, but and I think sometimes we hear them so much, we kind of take them for granted. But some of those songs were really, really well done, and I know they put a lot of attention to their songwriting, and I think that's one of the reasons they've risen above, because there were a lot of those kind of country rock bands that played really well. You know, and but the Eagles had really good songs, and I could have named several others, but that "The Last Resort," the lyrics in that are so beautiful and meaningful, and that's and so American. You know, I think it's an American dream of sorts, somewhat gone wrong, but. The Last Resort. I feel like a lot of people will have known that, but if they haven't, they should listen to that song. It's definitely one of the Eagles' best. All right,
It's a
Mark,
great album.
what was your number 3?
Number 3, I'm going to go with, and let me just say that by no means am I claiming that these are the 5 best lyricists in history, because that is impossible. So I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm just saying these are 5 lyrics that touched me, that I like, that has stuck with me forever. I'm going to go next. Wait, I think I actually picked 6. I'm going to have to, okay, let me pick this. I'm going to do Bruce Springsteen. Okay, Bruce Springsteen, amazing songwriter to me.
Absolutely.
Born to Run, possibly the greatest album of the 70s. You know, again, a very iconic song. The screen door slams, Mary's dress sways. Like a vision, she dances across the porch as the radio plays Roy Orbison singing for the lonely. Hey, that's me, and I want you only. Don't turn me home again. I just can't face myself alone again. A little bit later, you can hide neath your covers and study your pain. Make crosses from your lovers, throw roses in the rain. Waste your summer praying in vain. You can hide neath your covers and study your pain. Make crosses from your lovers, throw roses in the rain. Waste your summer praying in vain for a savior to rise from these streets. Well now, I'm no hero, that's understood. All the redemption I can offer, girl, is beneath this dirty hood, with a chance to make it good somehow. And then it goes into, you know, roll down the window, let the wind blow back your hair. You know, the night's busting open. These 2 lanes will take us anywhere. We got one last chance to make it real, to trade these wings on some wheels, climbing back, heaven's waiting down the tracks. Of course, that song is Thunder Road. And I'm telling you,
That Springsteen song.
That song, when I first heard that, and I still get so emotional hearing that song. I mean, it's just an incredible song. On one level, it's like a guy trying to seduce a girl. On the other level, it's a guy trying to just find some kind of dignity, and
he's trying to seduce a girl. And
yeah, it's just an amazing song that has so many, you can read so much into that, you know. And I mean, it's great lyrics, it's a great melody, the vocal performance, it's so like passionate and heartfelt, and just, I mean, that's one of the greatest songs ever written. No, that's just one of the greatest songs ever written, as far as I'm concerned. Thunder Road, Bruce Springsteen, Born to Run, 1975. I just love it.
And you know, I sort of always feel like as much as I like Springsteen, I don't know if he ever came close to that Born to Run album and Thunder Road. I mean, I think he's done cool things all along. I like the stuff he did for The Wrestler. I don't know if you ever saw that movie with Mickey Rourke.
Yeah.
So he's done things right along, but that Born to Run album, they worked so hard on that. And I've read that he spent months on those lyrics with big notepads revising, and they're long extended lyrics too,
Well, if you listen to the lyrics to the song Born to Run, that's an amazing song.
That's another one too.
The song Jungle Land. I mean, all those songs, they're
10th
just
Avenue
beautiful.
Freeze Out. Yeah.
Oh, they're just like incredible. Incredibly
no
evocative songwriting.
And in fact, I feel like I haven't listened to much Springsteen in many years, but when I was growing up, I loved Bruce Springsteen, so definitely. And Thunder Road, I think is his. I would say that's my favorite song that he's ever done.
Probably mine too.
Maybe that, I don't know if I feel like his best song, but definitely my favorite song. And you're right, the words are an integral part of the success of that song. I mean, absolutely. Well, my number 3 was actually Ian Hunter from Mott the Hoople. And also, he had a pretty good solo career, like Once Bitten, Twice Shy, which I used to play quite a bit. But I always thought Mott the Hoople were kind of like Jethro Tull. He had kind of a funny voice in some ways. I mean, some people might have compared to like a Roger Daltrey or Paul Rogers or something, but the lyrics were always really good and really smart. Now, my favorite Mott the Hoople song is called Saturday Gigs. I don't know if anyone's ever heard that one. I think it was supposed to be kind of almost on a par with All the Young Dudes, which of course is a David Bowie song, and then they broke up. But it's sort of a story of the band, but it's so poignant. 69 was Cheapo Wine, Had a Good Time, What's Your Sign, Float Up to the Roundhouse on a Sunday Afternoon. 70 was a Jamboree, We Were the Dudes and the Dudes Were We. Did you see the suits and the platform boots? Sort of the glam rock thing, but they had a bunch of good songs. Another good one that he wrote was called Marionettes. It's on that album, The Hoople. But Ian Hunter was a really good lyricist, and I think you mentioned in how British some I don't know. Sometimes I think the British in that period anyway, they had good schools. A lot of these guys may have been in trouble all the time in school, but they definitely absorbed some of 8th grade English lit class because they went on to write some. I got something out of it because there's so many of those guys that I didn't include Roger Waters. But he's kind of like that too, very British, lyrical. I didn't put him on this list, but I am noticing quite a few of the ones that I've thought of as well as included on this list with British. And I think and also kind of post-war England. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at my list, and 4 out of the 5 are British of my list, and then the Eagles. But I put Mott the Hoople. Another group I was kind of thinking of including was Jethro Tull, and Ian Anderson had some really good lyrics, actually.
Excellent choice.
Excellent lyrics, right. But I picked Mott the Hoople because they're a personal favorite. I love Mott the Hoople. And they had another good song named Alice about a kind of a runaway girl that ends up on the streets. I don't know. And I listen to those albums a lot, and they're really good, really good. And Ian Hunter's solo stuff is always good, So that was my number 3. Well, what was your number? I guess we're on number 2, Mark. Not that we're counting, but I think you might have 2 left to go. What was your next one?
Well, I realized that I actually picked 6, so I had to do away with 1. And I'll tell you later which one I did away with because it's definitely a contender. But
your number 2, Mark, was?
And the great Paul Simon. And I feel like you can't talk about great lyricists without talking about Paul Simon. Paul Simon is so far up there, and the thing about lyrics, I don't know, there's some songs that you've heard a million times and you don't even know the lyrics. But then there's songs that you do know the lyrics, but you've heard them so much that you don't notice the lyrics anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh,
Like
absolutely.
you've just like this. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more, people talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs that voices never share, and no one dared disturb the sound of silence.
That's
Now, I've heard that 100,000 times, so much that the words don't always register anymore. And when you stop and you hear those words, it's like, that's unbelievable writing.
it
That's
is. It is.
unbelievable writing.
And the lyric and the guitar part and the melody is just brilliant too. But the lyrics are it's just the masterpiece lyrics. Um, and in the naked light, I saw 10,000 people, maybe more. Oh, it's such powerful imagery. And I think that was kind of their breakthrough song, and they recorded it, and nobody wanted it at first, if I'm not mistaken. And then they were going to kind of quit their duo, and then they started playing it on the radio stations, if I'm not mistaken. But I thought about Paul Simon too, because he, like you said about cliches, in some ways he's an obvious choice, but the reason he's an obvious choice is because he deserves to be. America is another one. Let us be lovers. We'll manage our fortunes together. And any of those songs, Bridge Over Troubled Water.
One of my favorites is, again, it's a song we've heard. I've built walls, a fortress steep and mighty,
I'm a rock.
that none may penetrate. I have no need of friendship. Friendship causes pain. Its laughter and its loving I disdain. I am a rock. I am an island.
Yeah.
Again, and the thing about Paul Simon, for a lot of us, we first kind of became familiar with Paul Simon through Saturday Night Live. He was on Saturday Night Live like
With George
all
Harrison.
the time in the
Yeah,
70s.
right.
And he was like this funny, lovable, likable, relatable guy. And the
Yeah.
thing, and so you had this idea that he was this upbeat, cheerful guy. And if you hear his words, it's like dark. It's like really
Right.
dark and heavy. I mean, we
Right.
studied I Am a Rock. I remember talking about that song in existentialist philosophy class,
Right. A couple of his really good songs I don't think you hear as much. One is For Emily, Wherever I Might Find Her. And
Oh, great song.
a lot of those songs would just be he and Art Garfunkel with one acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
And just done so well. And they were pretty popular. Paul Simon is. They'll be singing. They'll be reading his lyrics as well as singing his songs years and years from now.
I agree.
No doubt about it. His solo career, I think, has been pretty successful too.
Very much. Very much.
An interesting question is whether there's a perfect age for writing lyrics. Sometimes I think, certain kinds of songs, they seem to go with youth. And then you think of all the great poets and things that have written such good stuff into their old age. But a lot of his songs seem to capture the 60s to me. And
Yep.
and sometimes and I think being young in the 60s is a part of that, but the period too. No, there's no doubt about Paul Simon. Don McLean was another one. I didn't put him on my list, but he's got some just I think American Pie it kind of became a singer-songwriter Freebird or Stairway to
That's a
Heaven.
good point.
But if you look at all the, like Vincent is another one that a lot of people have heard, but got to be one of the best lyric of any song I've ever heard. I actually didn't put it on this list, but Castles and Don McLean's got some really beautiful lyrics. Absolutely.
I know Vincent just rips your heart out. That song is so
Oh,
beautifully written.
it
That's
is.
every time I hear that, it never gets old to me.
And it is a masterpiece of songwriting. I mean, and if you study like songwriting too, it's just so well done. It's got a beautiful bridge. It sort of takes you out.
Yep.
Vincent is I think one of the best songs, just pound for pound, I've ever heard in my life. Maybe Vincent.
I don't disagree with that one bit.
I mean, it's a great song. I mean, a great song, absolutely great. And Gordon Lightfoot's got some good ones too. Well, my number 2 was actually the Who. So that's another. Not. I don't know. I suppose I don't know when I start to think about Don McLean, I think, well, but the Who has really good lyrics, and they wrote Tommy, Pete Townsend, and Tommy is such an important album, and the Quadrophenia is such a good album. Hey Siri, give me the lyrics to Love, Rain, or Me. But Quadrophenia, I think is just a masterpiece album, and the lyrics are really important. And I think the Who rocks so much, their music kicks so much ass that I don't think the lyrics for the Who wouldn't necessarily be sort of necessarily sensitive type lyrics, but they were lyrics that evoked the feelings that the Who's music evoked, which were often I don't say anger, but maybe part of it, but sort of energy. This recording is going to be chaos. I think we're getting the good stuff, but the song that I thought of is my favorite Who song, and I think is Love, Rain, or Me. And I think it's the lyrics are part of it because it's the sort of the capstone of a vision of this youth named Jimmy. Only love can make it rain. Like the sweat of lovers playing in the field. I should have written some of these down, but and I think in that case you have the lyrics set the music off and vice versa. I think in that case, the greatness of the song wouldn't be the same without the lyrics, and the lyrics would not be as great as they are without the music. And I think that was part of the genius of Townsend and the Who in general is they sort of captured all those things. I looked up the lyrics; they're not that long, and everybody's heard the lyrics to Love, Rain, or Me, but they're really powerful. They're not extended, and they come at the end of that really, really good album of Quadrophenia. And I happen to notice it's another British band, the same generation.
Pete Townsend is in my top 10. I mean, he's on my list of, I very easily could have picked him. It's not my favorite overall song, but it's maybe my favorite lyrics is Behind Blue Eyes.
Absolutely.
I mean, that is such a vulnerable, like unbelievably sensitive song. It's just a great song.
It is, and it rocks in the middle. Another good one that's really just a few lines, but a few lines. It's almost like a church chant or something. But the end of Tommy, see, looking at you, I see.
Oh,
it's just a
so
couple
good.
lines, but the lyrics are a killer part of that. And if you look, it's really just 3 or 4 lines, but it's repeated over and over, and the lines are just perfect for the end of that, which is another ending of a great album. Tommy is kind of like Quadrophenia. I always thought they put it together a little more in Quadrophenia because they were maybe a little older, but Tommy's a great album, and But well, Mark, we're down to number one. But before we did number one, I thought of the potential comedy element of maybe some dishonorable mentions. I don't know if you came up with any. The potentially humorous category of dishonorable mentions. So, of course, I'm sure we have more honorable mentions, but what are some dishonorable mentions? If you have it.
To me, there's nothing that compares. This just cracks me up every single time, and it's hard even to read the lyric with a straight face, but I'm going to try.
Okay.
MacArthur's Park
Oh.
is melting in the dark. All the sweet green icing flowing down. Someone left the cake out in the rain. I don't think that I can take it because it took so long to bake it. And I'll never have that recipe again. Oh no.
I've always wondered why he left that in there. It must have meant something to him, because Jimmy Webb is a great lyricist. Is that Rod McEwen or is that's Jimmy Webb, right? Or is that Rod McEwen?
Richard Harris had the single with it.
I think that might be Jimmy Webb. Because I was gonna Rod McEwen had some really good poetry back then that ended up music like Jean, Roses Are Red. Is that Jimmy Webb or Rod?
It is Jimmy Webb. It is
okay.
Jimmy Webb.
Because I was gonna say now Jimmy Webb is a great songwriter and a great lyricist. That's what's kind of when you read that, because I actually thought of MacArthur Park a little bit too. Because like he wrote by the time didn't he write Wichita Lineman? I mean,
he wrote some great stuff.
But that one, someone left the cake out in the rain, and I don't think that I could make it because it took too long to make it. And but all I can think of is it must have meant something to him. I bet, yeah. Well, my dishonorable mentions were actually less serious in a way, but I was trying to picture years from now, when they're studying 20th century American lyrics, maybe in an English lit class of the future, or maybe they read some Paul Simon, some Cat Stevens lyrics. He's got some good lyrics, and then they get to Tommy James and the Shondells. My baby does the hanky panky. My baby does the hanky panky. Now you'd think they maybe change it for the next. But no, they keep my baby does the hanky panky. My baby does that. It's not once, not twice, not three times. I mean, if you sang that maybe once or twice, and then maybe came up with she's so, I don't know, something. I love my baby or something. But just my baby does the hanky panky. My baby does the hanky panky. My baby does the hanky panky. Another one I was trying. Wild Thing. You make my heart sing. It's all the things because remember, like in freshman English class, when you're always told, good poetry doesn't just like you don't Moon in June or or like in religious music, Calvary died for me, or that's considered bad, But Wild Thing, you make my heart sing. I don't know. You make everything groovy. Well, but the weird thing is, I bet years from now, it'll still be as popular as. But years from now, it will still be as popular in a weird way as some of the great, truly great artistic expressions of music, because it is a pretty good rock and roll song, Wild Thing.
It is a good rock and roll song. It's so funny. I feel bad like knocking people I like, but like Neil Diamond, right? I like Neil Diamond, but
I do too.
But I said, to no one there. and no one heard at all, not even the chair.
Yeah, I am, I said.
I am, I said, to no one there, and no one heard at all, not even the chair.
Right. Well, you know that, I mean, it's not like Wild Thing where it's almost like bad on purpose, you know, like some of those Lieber and Stoller songs that, I mean, I am, I said, it's supposed to be like a really sort of a signature song. And it's, you know, I guess maybe he was trying to think of something that rhymed with there, but yeah, no, there's
It's
some
funny.
yeah, yeah. Well, Mark, who was your number one?
Well, I think it's kind of hard to argue with the number one. Um, I think most people would pick Bob Dylan as the greatest lyricist in history. And boy, I'll tell you, it's so hard because there's so many incredible Bob Dylan lyrics. You know, "Hard Rain's Gonna Fall," um, you know, "Blowing in the Wind," "Don't Think Twice, It's All Right," um, you know, "Simple Twist of Fate." I mean, basically the entire Blood on the Tracks album. Um,
Oh, one of the
my
best albums
God,
I've ever heard in my life. Blood on the Tracks specifically.
you know, "It's All Right, Ma, I'm Only Bleeding" is an
Yeah.
amazing song.
Temporary
Uh,
like Achilles.
yeah, "Positively Fourth Street." I wish
Yeah.
that for just one time you could stand inside my shoes, you'd know what a drag it is to see you. I mean, such a bitter song, but it's such a great song at the same time. Um, so I don't know. There's so many I could pick, but I'm going to pick one
Best
that,
Dylan song. I'm trying to think what you might have picked.
well, I'm going to pick, this is my personal favorite lyric, probably of all time. And it's a very famous song. I'm going to do this as a test. I was with a bunch of music friends who are all music freaks, even probably more than I am. And I read this. So I was with a bunch of friends and I played this, or I read this lyric to them, and they had no idea what song it was. And it's a really famous song. So I'm going to read this song or read the lyric and see if you know
All
the
right.
song. Okay.
All right, let's see.
I think this imagery in this song is just brilliant. Okay. This is so incredible to me. "Then take me disappearing through the smoke rings of my mind, down the foggy ruins of time, far past the frozen leaves, the haunted, frightened trees, out to the windy beach, far from the twisted reach of crazy sorrow. Yes, to dance beneath the diamond sky with one hand waving free, silhouetted by the sea, circled by the circus sands, with all memory and fate driven deep beneath the waves. Let me forget about today until tomorrow."
I'm going to guess, even though I don't really know, but I know you love the song "Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands." Is it "Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands"?
That is not it.
Okay, okay.
The chorus of the song.
Give me
Okay.
another little taste. It's a well-known
Well,
song, so I've heard this song.
oh, it's one of the most famous songs of all time. This was a number one hit song in 1965. You're going to be shocked. It's so funny because
It's not
people,
stuck inside of Mobile with the Memphis Blues again.
nope, nope, nope.
Okay.
"With all memory and fate driven deep beneath the waves, let me forget about today until tomorrow. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man,
Oh,
play a song for me.
okay.
I'm not sleepy and there is no place I'm going to." I'm telling you, if you read the words to Mr. Tambourine Man, it will blow you away.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I love Dylan's voice, but his lyrics stand alone on a printed page, like poetry. When you would have read what you were read at the beginning, if you had told me that was maybe like T.S. Eliot or someone like that, I don't think I would have, I would have believed you. The imagery is so powerful and evocative.
Well, he's such an important figure. I mean, he's really credited, deservedly so, for making rock music literate. I mean, if you consider, Blowing in the Wind, which was like 1963, consider like 3-4 years before, it was Splish Splash, I'm taking a bath, right?
Yeah.
That was a pop song. And then Dylan
Yeah.
comes along, and suddenly popular music is literary. And suddenly you're not cool if you don't write your own lyrics and your own songs.
Right.
The
singer-songwriter thing, he kind of invented that. Even the Beatles were kind of influenced by, not kind of, they were very influenced by Bob Dylan, I think.
Very much.
Yeah. Great choice. And there's no doubt. Blood on the Tracks is, I think, one of the best albums I've ever owned.
And, incredible.
Yeah. You're going to make me lonesome when you go. Shelter from the Storm. The lyrics on those. And, it's kind of funny because a lot of times the chords might just be a few chords, but he would kind of set the lyrics to it and almost like talk sing in some, and always great.
Well, here's one for you. This is a little quick snippet for you, but I love this song so much. People tell me it's a sin to know and feel too much within. I still believe she was my twin.
That simple twist of fate.
But I lost the ring. She was born in spring, but I was born too late. Blame it on a simple twist of fate.
It's one of Dylan's best songs.
That's just incredible.
Oh.
That album never gets old.
No. That is definitely one of his best albums. And but he's got so many. And even people say his albums were kind of uneven, like Planet Waves, but there are always good lyrics on them. Yep. I think sometimes he worked with bands that were, but no. It's kind of funny. I think Mr. Tambourine Man has, to a small extent, I hate to say this, but it may have been ruined for me by the William Shatner cover of it. Have you ever read?
I forgot about that.
I was just thinking that. Yeah. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man. I just, but
Well, the Byrds, I know the Byrds version, and the Byrds took that song to #1. That was the first Bob Dylan song that actually was #1.
Yeah.
And, the Byrds deserve a lot of credit, not just for bringing Bob Dylan but they were the first rock band to actually bring poetry into the top of the charts pop music.
Turn, I think, was from Ecclesiastes.
Yep.
No, I think was David Crosby. I know he's in the Byrds, but he was in the Byrds when they did Mr. Tambourine. Is David Crosby on Mr. Tambourine Man?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That's the classic lineup of the Byrds. That was their first or second album that was.
You know more about the Byrds than I do. I love the Byrds though, and
huge fan.
Yeah, and then they kind of, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young was kind of a little bit of a split off from the Byrds and the Hollies, and the Hollies were good too.
Right. Oh, the Hollies. Yeah, you can look at the Byrds. I think you can trace like the whole folk rock thing goes back to the Byrds. Country rock,
absolutely.
Sweethearts of the Rodeo. That's a great album. Yeah.
And Graham Parsons. They always say he was in the Byrds. I don't think he was in them that long, but Graham Parsons, right?
Yeah, he was in later, but he was in Sweethearts of the Rodeo.
A pretty good album, yeah.
Which is considered like the first kind of country rock album. And then, of course, the Flying Burrito Brothers. And then eventually it arrived at the Eagles, which were kind of like the pinnacle of that whole movement, if you will.
Yeah.
But yeah, just great.
Oh
Just
yeah.
great.
Buffalo Springfield was kind of in that little coterie of groups too, weren't they?
They were Buffalo
Yeah.
Springfield. Well, the Birds actually broke or discovered the Buffalo Springfield.
Because they
They
had
gave them
Stephen Stills and Neil Young, right?
their first break, yeah. And
Right,
so
right.
the Birds are so influential, you
Oh
know.
yeah. You know that Mark, we'll have to talk about this sometime, but sometimes I wonder if it's just we all kind of react to what's going on in a certain time of our lives, or was there really something very special about the 60s in terms of music? And maybe on into the early 70s, because that decade, it's, I guess every decade has its great music, but there was something very special about the music of the 1960s.
No
And
question. It was
it
by far the most innovative decade. There's no question. You
and it
look at
was
the
high.
innovation of that decade, you can't even get your head around it.
No, and it was high quality music, but I feel like you can always find high quality music, but the mainstream music was of such a high caliber. I mean, you'd be listening to AM. A lot of the songs we're mentioning were on AM radio next to the Archies, or not that there's. I love the Archies, by the way. I love a lot of that bubblegum, but um, there was something very special. It was kind of that mixture of the popular culture, vibrant literary culture, musical culture. I think there was something very special about the 1960s, and I know every decade has its charms and excellence, but there was something very special about the 1960s, which kind of spilled. I love the 70s too. I think the 60s kind of spilled over into the 70s. A lot of those were the same people in a lot of cases. But
But
there
you
was
look at
something
like
really,
how you look at how quickly it evolved. That's what I can't get over. It was
was,
only 3 years from the Beatles appearing on Ed Sullivan to the Beatles releasing Sergeant Pepper. And we're talking 3 years, three
yeah,
years. You think about it, like the Sun Sessions, Elvis Presley, the Sun Sessions were in 1955. 1965, the Grateful Dead's first album is, or 65, 66 stuff is coming out.
I think it's choke.
Like how do you go from the Sun Sessions to the Grateful Dead and the Jefferson Airplane in 10 years? I mean, that's unbelievable to me.
Right. No, and Pat Boone to Dylan, and you know what? A lot of those artists I respect. I mean, Bobby, who did who did they used to call the Polish Wonder? He did Red Roses for a Blue Lady and
Oh, Bobby Vinton.
Bobby Vinton. Yeah, some of those. Yeah. I but well, Mark, my number one was, I thought about this and it just hit me before. I thought about Nights in White Satin, and I thought, that really is a beautiful song, and it's such a great love song. And then I started thinking about it more, and I said, not only that, but the Moody Blues are one of the bands, maybe the only one I can think of, that not only had great lyrics all through their everything they ever did, but they actually had actual poetry incorporated into their songs. Not only at the end of Nights in White Satin, breathe deep, the gathering gloom, watch lights fade in every room. I mean, that's so my number one was actually the Moody Blues. I wasn't going to put them, and I thought, in a way, they deserve it. The Moody Blues, was that John Lodge or Justin Hayward? Who, or maybe both?
I'm not sure who actually wrote the lyrics. That's a good question.
I should have researched that, but I thought about it. It just kind of hit me. I said, and it wasn't just Nights in White Satin, as famous as the poem on the end of that is, and all their songs had good lyrics. I'm just a singer in a rock and roll band. I give my life completely for my dear sweet lady. Tuesday Afternoon. I mean, those are such good songs. And then I thought, and not only that, but they really had beautiful poetry that would be kind of incorporated into their music in a very specifically poetic way. I mean, it was very specific and intentional poetry. And I think it was good poetry. I mean,
I really love them. I think they're underrated. People don't remember them like they should, I feel like.
I feel like that too. And it's hard for me to tell because sometimes I think, well, in the in this, I remember in the '70s, a lot of people loved the Moody Blues. Um, but I do think they're not. They never translated as much into the classic rock format. They were kind of album oriented rock, and I think the Moody Blues were kind of album oriented rock, which is what I prefer to the term classic rock. But when the radio formats changed, I think they Mark, you're freezing like every time. But when the radio formats changed to classic rock, they started calling it classic rock. And they really tightened up a lot of what they played. And I don't think the Moody Blues ever really the richness of their catalog. And I don't think it ever translated to the mainstream of music. And that's true. Man, you can say about Hendrix. They used to hear Crosstown Traffic and all that, and then when they started calling classic rock, you'd hear Purple Haze, just a fewer Hendrix songs more often. And the Moody Blues really suffered when they made that transition. I think they are kind of underrated. And those songs, I always thought they were really good because they were in a way a singer-songwriter band almost, because a lot of their songs were acoustic guitar based, but they had such a good rock band to back them. I hadn't even listened to the Moody Blues that much in a while, but I said, in a way, they might be one of the best. I decided to name them as number one, and I think I thought of different people. I thought about it, and I said, there are a lot of other people I could put, but the more I think about it, list what the Moody Blues meant to me growing up, and how important the lyrics were, and the quality of all those songs. And Nights in White Satin, I think, I don't know if it was John Lodge or Justin Hayward, but that was written when the guy was 17. I'm pretty sure, and it was one of those songs he kicked around for a while. Probably did it in coffee shops or at parties or something, and it ended up finally in 1967 being on that super duper good album, Days of Future Past.
Days of Future Past is one of my favorite albums. That album is so good.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I feel like I don't want to say forgotten, but I feel in some ways it's not as remembered. And I think that was done with the London Philharmonic Orchestra. And they had a couple poems on there, And it was also like I said, you probably find bands today that do poetry, but there was something about the '60s where that was a really famous record. It was a big, huge, popular record. So I put it number one. There were so many people, but I thought the Moody Blues. The more I thought about it, I said, they just had awesome lyrics, really, song after song, and not only good lyrics in their songs, but they actually had designated poetry as a significant part of their catalog, and not just on a couple songs, but I think all their albums featured poetry. So,
well, yeah, I mean, there's so many. The one that I was going to mention but did not make the cut is Robbie Robertson. And I love, and I want to just say, if you have not seen this, I don't know if you've seen the Martin Scorsese documentary about him. I actually just watched it last night.
You don't mean The Last Waltz?
No, it just came out last. It just came out last year.
I didn't even know about it.
It's called Once We're Brothers, and it's Martin Scorsese's documentary about Robbie Robertson and the band, not the band as well as Robbie Robertson's own
I need to watch that. No,
it's Dave. It's so good you can't hardly stand it. I don't know if you've seen Martin Scorsese's other rock documentaries, but they're just in a class of their own. His documentary on the Stones, Dylan, George Harrison. I mean, they're just so good, but this one is just as good,
I need to
you
watch
know.
those. I don't watch enough rock documentaries, or the ones I do watch tend to be the old kind of vintage concert films or something. Or
Well, the thing I love about Robbie Robertson is like, we're talking the height of psychedelia, and then along comes this band that evokes 19th century America. There's
right,
nothing psychedelic about them. It's like black and white photographs. You know, Suddenly you're in 19th century America with songs
right,
about Crazy Chester, Anna Lee,
yeah,
Ophelia, Virgil Caine, medicine
right,
shows,
right,
Robert E.
right.
Lee.
They even
It's
dressed. They
like
even dressed with
it,
the yeah, kind of like a
it's
one guy
just,
looked like an old preacher, one guy looked like a gun, yeah, cowboy. Or, yeah,
yeah. I think his lyrics are so evocative. Sometimes they're really funny. Um, I just think he's great. I mean,
and
he
something
obviously,
else. I Obviously people love Robbie Robertson, but there was that whole Levon Helm versus Robbie Robertson, and I don't know any of the particulars, but I've always thought that I hope people really realize that there's such imagination in those songs. That's was the charm and the power of the band, because lots of bands play great, and that owes to Robbie Robertson. I don't know it. Yeah, um, yeah. It makes no difference. That's such a good song. Yeah, no doubt about it. Mark, what do you think of the lyrics to "Stairway to Heaven"? I was either going to, I was almost going to include it as a dishonorable mention. And then I thought, some of the lyrics are pretty good, but then you'll come out, there's a feeling I get when I look to the west and my spirit is crying for, there's a kind of epic feel to it. And then you'll have, if there's a bustle in your hedgerow, don't be alarmed now. And, if the stores are all closed, I thought, you have some of these lines in there that are just so kind of epic and haunting and evocative. And then you have some that they're not even trippy in a kind of abstract way. They just seem kind of, but I don't know. What's your opinion of the lyrics to Stairway to Heaven?
well, it's so funny. I was just thinking about that tonight. That's a song I've heard, tens of thousands of
Yeah,
times.
no doubt.
And I swear I could not tell you the lyrics to it. When I listen to that song, I hear the melody, I hear the guitar solo, I hear,
Right.
the music, and I'm like, the lyrics, something about a hedgerow, something
Yeah,
about a
the
May
baked meat.
Queen. I don't know. I don't know what
Well,
it's about.
I think it's one of those songs that has a kind of great opening lyric. I think it's kind of like Dream On. Dream On's a good song, but it's got a really good opening lyric that kind of gets you right there. And then I'm not talking in terms of Stairway to Heaven. I think it drifts a little bit. I think there are flashes of good lyrics all through Stairway to Heaven, that kind of have that epic feel, which the song has. But I didn't put it down, and but I wanted to ask you what you thought of Stairway to Heaven, because it's such a famous song, and I think the lyrics are part of its fame. Stairway to Heaven. The title is a great title.
It's a
I
great
mean,
title.
a great title for a song, and that's in the first few lines of the song. So in a way, the lyrics are part of the song's power. But when you put them all together, I think they're great lines laced all the way through Stairway to Heaven, actually. And I think Robert Plant could come up with some good lyrics sometimes, often. But uh, I don't know. But I just wondered what you thought of Stairway to Heaven, because it's got to be one of maybe the most famous rock song ever done. Uh,
It's
and
got to be up there. It's
and the
got to be up
title is
there.
so iconic, and the title is part of the lyric. So, well, Mark,
Well,
thanks so much for coming. I'm sorry we had some internet problems, but what a good conversation. We'll have to do it again sometime.
that would
But
be fun. No,
yeah,
this is a real pleasure. It's a real
yeah, and
pleasure.
I'll move to another room, I think. But yeah, no, it was a great conversation, and your picks were so good, and it was so nice to have you read some of those lines. And yeah, it was a really good conversation. Sometime we'll have to talk about the 60s and was that a special time but great conversation. And it was good to see you again because we
Great to see you.
touched base on Facebook a couple times, but I don't think I've seen your face other than maybe some shots on Facebook. And when was the last time we saw each other? Wasn't it the 90s maybe? You visited Oxford.
I was thinking I visited down there sometime in the 90s, and I remember getting a tour of your college and
Yeah,
seeing your office.
that was
I
the last
remember,
time I think we ever saw each other in person.
I know, I think it might have been. It's been a long time.
Well, we'll have to do it again. Yeah. But we go way back, and whenever I want to talk about music, I can't think of anyone, and I really mean this, that is more insightful and knowledgeable than Mark Glubke. Well, Mark, thanks so much for joining us, and great picks and comments on all your songs. And I know we could probably go on with more. I like the dishonorable mentions. I thought we had. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a pleasure. I'm really
Yeah.
glad you asked me. It's an honor. I love what you're
yeah.
doing with your YouTube channel, and I
Well,
look forward
I'm
to
trying.
seeing what you do with this.
It's,
So,
yeah. Well, one dishonorable mention I was thinking of is the Righteous Brothers. You've lost that love and feeling. Whoa, 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 whoa! When he sings that line. But this will go on the YouTube channel, and it will add a lot because one thing about my channel is I do a lot myself, and so it's always good to have another human being to interact with, especially one like you.
well,
So
if you put it on Facebook, be sure to tag me so my
I will. I
friends will see
definitely
it.
will. I'll edit it. Maybe I can toss a few photos in there and things while we're talking, kind of have them on part of the screen. And if you have any of vintage photos of us, maybe like playing and the few times we played, shoot them to me. Maybe I'll put them in the beginning somewhere. Nothing too embarrassing.
No, oh no.
Well, listen, Mark, it was an absolute pleasure. Great conversation. And you take care of yourself, and we'll do it again.
Okay,
Sooner rather than later.
awesome.
Bye.
You
Take
have a
care.
good night. Okay.
Best to you. We'll talk again. Bye.
Okay, bye.